You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with a very interesting rumor involving my beloved Yankees. According to Jason Mackey of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Yankees and Pirates have talked about a Josh Bell and Jameson Taillon trade. Obviously, we don't know who the Pirates have talked about getting from the Yankees, but we all know the popular trade chips that have been bandied about. Guys like Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier have been rumored to be on the block for a long time, and I would have no problem with them being traded. I've said that a million times before. Jonathan Loaisiga has been mentioned in some circles. You want Johnny Lasagna? Be my guest. Some fans have said that the Yankees could include a guy like Jason Dominguez, Davy Garcia, or Clark Schmidt in this type of a trade. I'd be very hesitant to do that if I was Brian Cashman. We have no evidence to support the fact that those guys are available. I mean, prospects are pieces of paper. If you could get a guy like Blake Snell, just hypothetically, and the Rays asked for a package of Dominguez, Garcia, and or Schmidt, you have to do it. But you don't just give those guys away. I'll get into Josh Bell first. Bell makes absolutely no sense for the Yankees. They have a guy in Luke Voit who is coming off a season where he led the majors in homers with 22. I understand 60-game season, but you only had 22 home runs by accident. Ever since this guy has been a Yankee, he has produced. Trading for him will go down in Yankees history as one of their best trades ever. It'll be right up there with the Roger Maris trade, the Paul O'Neill trade, the Tino Martinez trade. To move on from Luke Voit would be incredibly stupid for the Yankees. The guy's 29 years old. Bell is 28. Not much of an age difference. Bell last year hit .226 with 8 home runs and 22 RBIs. The year before, he was an all-star. He hit .277 with 37 homers and 116 RBIs. I like Josh Bell. I think Josh Bell is a really good player, but he makes no sense for the Yankees. They don't have a hole at first base. Some people have speculated that the Yankees could look to move on from Luke Voit because of his bad defense. Here's a newsflash. If you're producing offensively, You can overlook subpar defense. No one's going to be mistaking Voit for Mark Teixeira anytime soon, but he's also not Jason Giambi. In late game situations, fine. Take Voit out. I get that. You don't trade Voit because of his subpar defense. So that leaves DH. The Yankees have Giancarlo Stanton. The only way that Josh Bell makes sense for the Yankees is if Stanton's going to play left. That is doomed to fail. Stanton can't stay healthy just being the DH. You want him to play left also? Since the start of the 2019 season, Stanton has only played in 41 games. The only hope the Yankees have of getting production out of him is at DH. I love Stanton. I'm not knocking Stanton, but he's not going to play left. He's going to be the Yankees' DH through the 2027 season. And maybe through 2028 also. Because the Yankees will have an option on his contract then. Since I brought up left field, though, it brings up an interesting question. Can Josh Bell play left? The answer is no. He has some experience in right field. He's played 16 games in right field in his major league career. He has a .944 fielding percentage there. If you include his minor league totals, he's played 199 games in right and has a .969 fielding percentage. No one's going to be mistaking this guy for Roberto Clemente anytime soon. What about moving Judge? Can Judge play left? I'm sure Judge could. If you asked him to, I'm sure he would. The thing is, though, he's only played 7 games there. All in the minors. He had 9 chances in those 7 games. And he made an error. Also, I don't want to lose Judge's arm in right. The only positions that Josh Bell can play as a Yankee are first base and DH. What about the other first baseman? What about Voit? Can he play the outfield? There's actually a really interesting answer to that. Voit does have some outfield experience. Not much in the majors. He only has 1 inning in right field in his whole major league career. That's the extent of his outfield experience. But if you include his minor league career, he has a little more experience. 13 games in left, 1 game in right. He's never made an error in the outfield. It's not crazy to say if Voit isn't working at first base, you put him in the outfield. We've seen those types of position switches before. Carlton Fisk, Yogi Berra, Ron Gant. You come up at one position, then you move to another. It comes down to this. Is it worth moving Voit to left field, thinking you can make that transition work when you failed with Miguel Andujar? Sometimes it doesn't work. In 1988, Ken Williams for the Chicago White Sox moved from the outfield to third base. On no planet should Ken Williams have been a third baseman. But are you willing to try it? To take the chance? It's a big risk of moving on from Frazier. Because if the Yankees do this trade, Frazier doesn't have a spot. Backup outfielder? I don't think Frazier would like that. And I don't think the Yankees would do it. Is it worth trusting Voit in left to bring in Bell to play first base? Bell is a much better fielding first baseman than Luke Voit. Make no mistake about it. And it would help balance out a very righty-heavy Yankees lineup. Bell is a switch hitter. It's not crazy if you really stop and think about it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're upsetting the apple cart too much. The idea of trusting Voit in left that much is just too big a risk for me. Because if it doesn't work, then you have a big problem on your hands. It's a great problem to have. Finding playing time for guys like Voit and Bell. But it's a problem that you don't need to have. I think it's a fair bet to say that Luke Voit, barring an injury, will be the starting first baseman for the Yankees on opening day in 2021. But the other guy mentioned by Mackey is really interesting. Jameson Taillon. A guy who missed the whole season last year because he was recovering from Tommy John surgery. He only pitched in 7 games in 2019. He went 2-3 with a 4.1 ERA. The year before that, 2018, he was 14-10 with a 3.2 ERA. He pitched 191 innings. If Jameson Taillon is healthy, I'd be very interested in bringing him in. I understand that he's a righty, and I've been saying for a while that the Yankees need a lefty starter. In a perfect world, they would add a lefty starter. But if you can't get a lefty starter, you gotta go for a righty. And they still have a hole in the rotation. As it stands right now, the Yankees' rotation is Garrett Cole, Luis Severino, Domingo Germán, Jordan Montgomery, and probably a guy like Davy Garcia. Severino is going to miss the first half of the 2021 season, though. Remember, he had Tommy John surgery in February. Domingo Germán hasn't pitched since late in the 2019 season. I have no problem trusting Germán to get back to, if not his complete 2019 form, then close to it. Severino, though, for the first half of the season, you're going to need a replacement for him. It opens up the door for a guy like maybe Clark Schmidt. So the Yankees are going to enter the 2021 season, if it started tomorrow, with a rotation of Cole, Germán, Montgomery, Garcia, and Schmidt. That does not inspire confidence in me. I understand it's the offseason. You don't need to have a full roster in the offseason, but make no mistake about it. Starting pitching is a big issue for the Yankees. If Jameson Taillon is really healthy, he'd help the Yankees a lot. It's fair to wonder if he is. The last time the Yankees traded for an injury-prone starter, It didn't go too well. That was James Paxton. In 2019, Paxton wasn't dreadful with the Yankees, but he did spend some time on the IL. And last year, he only pitched 20 1/3 innings. Can you trust Taillon to stay healthy? I don't know. It's a big gamble. I don't see a Bell trade happening to the Yankees. Taillon, I wouldn't mind. I just got really hyped up about the possibility of a Marco Gonzalez trade. If he's unavailable, then Taillon makes sense. Wouldn't mind it. Used to play with Garrett Cole. So did Bell, for that matter. But I wouldn't do backflips over it like I would for Gonzalez. There were a couple other Pirates that were mentioned as possible trade candidates, not to the Yankees, just in general. According to John Heyman, Adam Frazier and Joe Musgrove have been mentioned a lot in trade talks. See, now you're making some sense for the Yankees. Frazier has some sizable experience in left. He's played 100 games there. He has more experience at second, but if you put him in left full time, he'll hold his own. He has a career .988 fielding percentage there. He's played 693 2/3 innings. That makes sense. You could pencil Frazier in as your starting left fielder and feel comfortable about it. I mean, I like Frazier. The Pirates actually have a lot of players that I don't think are bad. It's kind of weird. The Chris Archer trade just set him back a lot. Last year, Frazier hit .230 with 7 homers and 23 RBIs. That's bad. The year before, he hit .278 with 10 homers and 50 RBIs. That is the typical Adam Frazier season. He's going to turn 29 on Monday. He's a lefty. He's cost-controlled. Anyone would want Adam Frazier on their team. If you're the Pirates, you could easily get a top 10 prospect in a team system for Frazier. I wouldn't mind him on the Yankees at all. If the Yankees really don't view Mike Tauchman as a starting left fielder, put Frazier in left. I have no problem with that. Replace a Frazier with another Frazier. I'll take Adam over Clint. No question about that. As for Musgrove, he has talent. One year he looks good, the next year he looks bad. He's very up and down. He's a very streaky player. He's not bad. You can do worse than him as a 4th or 5th starter. But he doesn't move the needle a whole lot for me. I'm not talking about with the Yankees. I'm just talking in general. The Pirates would want a lot for Musgrove. He's 28. He's cost-controlled. If you're going to need to give up a top 10 or top 15 guy in your system to get Musgrove, sign a guy in free agency or trust one of your prospects to fill that role. I don't hate Musgrove. I wouldn't mind trading for him under the right circumstances, but he doesn't move the needle much for me. I'll say this, though. If the Yankees can pull off a trade involving Adam Frazier and Jameson Taillon, I'd have no problem with it. It would make perfect sense. I would trade Frazier in that type of a deal. I would trade Andujar in that type of a deal. I would trade Loaisiga in that type of a deal. I'd be hesitant to give up a super-duper top prospect. But if you wanted a top 10 guy in the Yankee system, I could be talked into it. Not all of that, but some combination of those guys could work. I wouldn't mind that at all. That would be a good move for the Yankees. Moving on now to some Colorado Rockies trade rumors. According to Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post, a Nolan Arenado trade is a legitimate possibility. Moreover, according to Nick Groke and Eno Saris of The Athletic, the Rockies are warming to the idea of trading Trevor Story. In other words, Rockies fans, I hope you enjoyed those 2 early playoff exits a few years ago, because you're not going to be relevant for a long time if these trades happen. I understand that the Rockies don't have a ton of money. Arenado is on a massive contract, which he's worth. He's probably the best third baseman in baseball. And Trevor Story's going to hit free agency after next season. If you're the Monforts and the pandemic hit your finances hard, I can empathize with that. I feel sorry for you. This pandemic has affected everyone, from the very rich to the very poor. No one's immune to it. No one's immune to the virus except the people who have taken the vaccine. And no one's immune to the human cost. Lifestyle changes, losing your job, not making as much money. It's terrible. It affects everyone. But having said that, I can't endorse an Arenado or Story trade from a Rockies perspective. I don't care what you get back in that type of a trade. I don't care if it's a super duper prospect. I don't care if it's 2 super duper prospects, 3 super duper prospects, whatever. Hell, if you get 5 super duper prospects in an Arenado trade and 4 super duper prospects in a Story trade, it's still not worth it. These are the 2 best players on your team. Maybe Charlie Blackmon gets thrown in there also, but I don't know. That's dicey. The point is, Trevor Story, ever since he's been in the majors, has done nothing but hit. Does he strike out a lot? Yes. But he also hits 30 home runs. He also hits .290. He can also run. He led the National League in triples and stolen bases last year. And for God's sake, Nolan Arenado is one of the best players in all of baseball. I can't endorse trading either one of them. The only way it makes sense is if Story says to the Rockies, I'm not going to sign an extension with you. I want to win. I don't think I can do that here. You're not going to give me the contract I want or something like that. I want to hit free agency. Then you can trade Trevor Story. And then that can open the floodgates to a Nolan Arenado trade. If you're going to blow things up, go all out. Blackmon could go in that case also. But unless Story says outright, I'm not going to sign an extension with the Rockies or re-sign with you guys once I hit free agency, I can't endorse trading them from a Rockies perspective. I don't care what the haul would be. Moving on now to the Mariners, bringing Chris Flexen back to the majors on a 2-year deal worth $4.75 million total. Last year, Flexen played for the Doosan Bears of the Korean Baseball Organization. With them, he went 8-4 with a 3.01 ERA. Good for him for righting the ship, but this is an overpay. This is a massive overpay. Flexen has shown that he just can't pitch in Major League Baseball. By far and away, the best baseball league on earth. I saw Flexen pitch with the Mets. I was not impressed. In 2019, he went 0-3 with a 6.59 ERA. In his career, he is 3-11 with an 8.07 ERA. He is dreadful. He is not a good pitcher. If you want to bring him back on a 1-year deal worth like $2 million at the most, I can get behind that a little bit, but 2 years for $4.75 million? No. That is a big overpay. That is a dreadful job by the Mariners. I don't care how they use him, as a starter or a reliever. This is not going to work out for the Mariners. Terrible job by Jerry Dipoto. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. Specifically a preview of tonight's Patriots-Rams game. I've said that the dynasty is dead. We don't have to worry about the Patriots anymore. They still have one of the best, if not the best coach in NFL history. But they don't have the players anymore. While that's still true in that they don't have the players anymore, they are 6-6. They're only 2 games out of that final wildcard spot. While I don't think it's going to happen, they'd have to leapfrog the Ravens, Raiders, and either the Dolphins or Colts. Give them credit for not keeling over. They've gone 4-1 in their last 5. While they don't have a great hope of making the playoffs, it's still there, which is a testament to Belichick. Cam Newton has not had a good season. He's only thrown 5 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He's throwing for under 190 yards per game. I understand he's completed 2/3 of his passes, and he's ran for 11 touchdowns. I get that, but Newton is past his prime. Quite honestly, in a perfect world, he'd be a backup. The Patriots just have no choice but to start him. As for their running backs, it's impossible to say who you should key in on. Damian Harris has been their best running back this year, but Belichick and Josh McDaniels like to throw curveballs with their running game. You could see a lot of Sonny Michel. You'll definitely see James White as a pass catcher. He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL. Hell, it's possible you could see J.J. Taylor. He's questionable for this game. No one's going to be mistaking any of those guys that I just mentioned for Lawrence Maroney anytime soon. Harris is having a solid season, give him credit, but he's not great. Sonny Michel is a bust. J.J. Taylor really hasn't had a chance to show what he can do, but from the little bit I've seen of him, I haven't been completely impressed. I'm not impressed with any of their pass catchers, with Julian Edelman out. Yes, James White, but how much can he do by himself? Jacoby Myers isn't that good. Demir Bird isn't that good. N'Keal Harry's a bust. This just isn't a good Patriots team. What's making them look better than they really are, in addition to the coaching, is their offensive line. But Shaq Mason is questionable for this game. So even if he plays, he's not going to be at 100%. They have a really good offensive line. Michael Onwenu, Mason, Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews, and Joe Thuney. They all have an over 71 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Those guys are the unsung heroes of the Patriots' record this year. Defensively, they're solid. I like Dietrich Wise. J.C. Jackson has had a good season, but he's questionable. Chase Winovich, who I wanted the Jets to take desperately over Chuma Edoga in 2019, has turned into a really good player. Jonathan Jones is questionable. The Patriots are banged up entering this game. So even if all these guys play, they're not going to be at 100%. I think the Rams are going to feast here. I understand that this isn't going to happen. There is no way on God's green earth that this happens, but in a perfect world, the Jets' next head coach would be Sean McVay, and I would trade a lot to get him. I do the same thing that the Buccaneers did for John Gruden. I know it's not going to happen. Rams fans, you don't need to worry. You're not losing Sean McVay, but he is without question one of the best head coaches in the NFL and the perfect guy for the Jets. He's helping Jared Goff to a really good season. I like Goff. Sean McVay turned his career around. He looked dreadful under Jeff Fisher his rookie year. Then McVay comes in and whips Goff into shape. He is a really, really good quarterback. The running game for the Rams is a three-pronged attack with Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers. I'd like Akers to take more of a lead-back role. I think he's better than Henderson and Brown, but the Rams are 8-4. They're tied for the 8th most rushing yards in the NFL in terms of rushing yards per game. So what they're doing is working. You're also going to see some jet sweeps with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. The Rams like to put those guys in motion a lot. Kupp and Woods are one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. They complement each other perfectly. Josh Reynolds is a solid slot receiver. Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee are two really good tight ends. This is a great Rams offense. Then again, your offense is always going to be great with McVay coaching it. Their offensive line is really, really good. Even with Andrew Whitworth out, it's still really good. Yes, Joseph Noteboom hasn't done a good job replacing Whitworth, but no one can replace Whitworth. Rob Havenstein, Austin Corbett, Austin Blythe, and David Edwards are really, really good. I'm going to be really interested in which offensive line plays better tonight, the Patriots or the Rams. Then again, the Patriots are going to have their hands full with Aaron Donald. I don't care how good you are. Aaron Donald is going to make you look human. Do I need to say any more than that? He's Aaron Donald. Their secondary is really good. Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, John Johnson, and Troy Hill are all really good players. In the Super Bowl a couple years ago, Bill Belichick thoroughly outcoached Sean McVay. That's why the Patriots won. While Belichick is still better than McVay, there's only so much he's going to be able to do. I think the gap in talent is just too stark for the Patriots to make up for it. Give me the Rams tonight. Alright, now I'll give you some basketball Valk talk. And I'll start with the Clippers locking up Paul George for 4 years at the maximum rate. Depending on who you believe, that could be $190 million or $176.3 million. Regardless, it's a whole hell of a lot of money. You really can't hate this move for the Clippers. There was this specter hanging over them that him and Kawhi Leonard could opt out and go their separate ways. Now, Kawhi obviously hasn't put pen to paper yet, but you gotta think this helps the Clippers in their quest to re-sign him. They're obviously gonna want to bring Kawhi back. He's Kawhi Leonard. They kept their title window open a little longer. Give them full credit. I'm not saying they're gonna win an NBA title anytime soon, but it's not impossible with those two guys around. The one thing I don't like is George took a big step back last year. His scoring wasn't as good, his rebounding wasn't as good, his defense wasn't as good, he was dreadful in the playoffs. He's still a great player. I take him on my team in a heartbeat. But this is a lot of money to give a guy who just no-showed in the bubble. Now, he said he was dealing with some mental health issues and being in the bubble. I have no reason to doubt him. Mental health is serious. It was tough what we asked these guys to do. But having said that, I can't overlook the fact that he shot under 40% from the field in the playoffs for the first time since the 16-17 season. He shot just 33.33% from beyond the arc. He only put up 20 points a game. You'd expect George to put up more than that. This is playoff P we're talking about. Again, I'm not saying he's bad. You can't hate this move for the Clippers, but if they don't bring back Kawhi Leonard, this can be a little dicey. Having said that, though, I do think they're going to bring Kawhi back. I don't think they do this deal if they know that Kawhi may not come back. Can Kawhi and George win an NBA title together? I think they can. In fact, I think they will at some point. Like I said, you can't hate this move for the Clippers. I do want to preview tonight's college basketball game involving two ranked teams. I hope you stay up for this. It's going to be a good game. San Diego State versus Arizona State. When you look at the Aztecs, at first glance, you're not going to be excited by their roster. They only have two guys averaging over 10 points per game. That's Jordan Shackle and Matt Mitchell. They're each averaging under 13 points per game. So how are they ranked? Well, their coach is Brian Dutcher. And Dutcher preaches defense above everything. In terms of points against per game, the Aztecs have the 9th best defense in the nation. They're only giving up 54.2 points per game. I understand that they have some cupcake schools that they've beaten, but they did hold UCLA to 58 points. That's impressive. They have 7 guys that are averaging at least a steal per game. They're very good with their active hands. They disrupt what you're trying to do offensively. They're very difficult to coach against. Bobby Hurley's going to have his hands full tonight. This is a Sun Devils team that really isn't that good defensively. They win by shooting the lights out. They're averaging 84.5 points per game. They've given up 77.5 points per game. Their best defender is probably Jalen House. He's averaging 2 steals a game. He only plays 15 minutes a game for him. Remy Martin's no slouch defensively, but Josh Christopher isn't that great defensively. Alonzo Verge isn't that great defensively. I'd say that Marcus Bagley can score, but he's a game-time decision. I have no idea if he's going to play or not. And even if he does, he's not going to be at 100%. Even though this game is at ASU, I don't like this matchup for the Sun Devils. They don't match up well against this great SDSU defense. Dutcher is one of the most underrated coaches in the nation. He's going to have something up his sleeve for this game, I promise you. Give me the Aztecs tonight. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying, I hate the New York Mets more than I hate communists. At least communists don't have off-season problems.